الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله ثم أما بعد. Assalamu alaikum. MashaAllah. As always, it's a tremendous honor, a great privilege, and something that I enjoy immensely to be in a position to facilitate conversations about the divine, about character, about community, about faith, in this space. And it is, as some would say, a pound cake with ice cream to be able to do it with people that I like, people that I respect, people that I esteem. This is Word to the Wise, and we have been reading together a translation of a classical text called Risalatul Mustarshideen, or Guidance for the Seekers. And its author is named Al-Harith Al-Muhasibi. And we are in the second chapter, and we have come to the portion of the book where he says, "You will not reach the level you anticipate except through persevering with what is displeasing to you." As-sabr. We know, even those of us that only know a few verses of the Quran, most of us are familiar with the ayah, "Inna Allaha ma'as sabirin." Truly, God is with those who are patient. And when I've said this many times, but this I find to be a very good, very comprehensive explanation of patience. That patience is only required of us in two circumstances. Either you want something and you don't have it, so you have to be patient, right? You want to finish your degree in a degree-giving program, and you want to finish, but you haven't, so you have to be patient. You want to get married, but you're single. All of you are licking your lips. So you have to be patient. You want your business to succeed, but you're still building it. You have to be patient. Or the second circumstance in which you have to be patient is you have something that you don't want. So there is tension between you and your parents, and you have to be patient. There is tension between you and a loved one or a relative, and you have to be patient. If someone is diagnosed with an illness, they have to be patient. So that means that patience is either you want something and you don't have it, or you have something and you don't want it. These are the only two times that you have to be patient. In either of those circumstances, God says, "Inna Allaha ma'as sabirin," that in lieu of what you want that you don't have, you have God. Or in lieu of the thing you want relief from that you are forced to endure, you have God. Now, what is amazing about this is a reality that those in affliction, those in states of difficulty are familiar with. Those looking at them might not be able to understand it. You might see someone and you might think, if I were in that circumstance, I would be losing my mind. If I were in that circumstance, I might be suicidal. If I was in that circumstance, you're right. Maybe you're thinking that if you were in that circumstance, you would do this or you would do that, but that person might enjoy a closeness with God in that circumstance that we can only begin to understand. Inna Allaha ma'as sabirin. God is with those who are patient. He says, you will not reach the level that you anticipate except through persevering through that which you do not like. We will inevitably be tried in this life. You will experience many things that are al-anbiya'i ashaddu an-nasi bala'an. He said, we, the assembly of the prophets, are the most severely tested of people. Many of us think that if God prefers, if God chooses someone, it means that everything in their life is facilitated. Everything in their life is easy. That could be the case. But it could also be the case that when God chooses someone, that person has difficulty in their life. Because through that difficulty, they come to know that the only thing that can be relied upon with assurance is God and nothing else. Everything in the world is up and then it's down. That's the nature of the world. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, "Igtanim min khamsa qabla khamsa," or "Igtanim khamsan qabla khams." He said, benefit from 5 things before 5 other things. He said, take advantage of your youth before your old age. Take advantage of your money before your poverty. Take advantage of your free time before your preoccupation. Take advantage of your good health before your sickness. And take advantage of your life before your death. What all of these things entail is that as human beings, we are subject to change. We are subject to what is called in English the vicissitudes of life. Those alternating fates. You can be sick and you can be well. You can be poor and you can be rich. You are young, one day you may be old, right? You have free time, one day you may be preoccupied. If God tries you, this does not mean that he's displeased with you. You know, one of my teachers told me something beautiful. He said, one of the differences between God and people is that God loves to hear us complain to him. People don't like to listen to you complain. Even if they tolerate your complaining, trust me, nobody enjoys listening to you complain. The people who love you, they may sit on the phone and say, yeah, I know. It is messed up. I know. This is because they empathize with you. But for Allah, the tadarru', the impassioned plea of the believer that's worship. You know, subhanallah. You know, one thing that I am sure of, and this is something all people do, even if we don't know that we're doing it, we do it. You only ask a person for something if you think they can provide what you're asking for. If you think that somebody is broke, trust me, you will not ask them for money. You know, that's like if you end up in a jam and you're going through your contact list and you see a person that you know is broke, you just skip right past that. Okay, yes, I know he can't help me. He can barely help himself. If you need someone to defend you, you never ask a coward. You don't ask a coward to defend you. When you make dua, when you call upon God and you ask God for something, you are only asking because you believe that God can give you what you're asking for. That's the only reason you ask, is because not only because to believe that God exists, you could be a deist. Deists are people who believe in what they call the God of the philosophers. I believe in, I guess creation must have a creator. Things must have a first cause. Our existence must have a point of origin, but they don't believe that that God interacts with human beings at all or creation at all. They believe that God created the world and the world is ordered according to the rules of the cosmos, the laws of physics, the laws of nature. So they don't believe in revelation, they don't believe in prophets, they don't believe in miracles, but they do believe in a God that exists. But not a God that can be appealed to, not a God that protects, not a God that delivers, not a God that saves, just a God that created and stepped back, right? You can believe in God in that way. But when you make dua, when you call upon God, especially when touched with affliction, something is difficult for me, and I ask God. This is first and foremost a testimony of my belief in God. Secondly, it's an expression of my humility. I actually know that I am in a situation in which I need help. I need aid. I need assistance. To recognize that is to recognize something fundamental to our humanity. You know, one of the pitfalls of being people that are, fairly capable is it's very easy for us to fall into hubris. I got this. Everything is under control, right? I've mentioned this before, but one of the signs of a person falling into delusional self-sufficiency is stinginess. When a person is stingy, it is usually the result of believing that what they have, they got on their own. So if I went out, if I worked, if I studied, if I strategized, if I planned and I earned this, go do what I did. Why would you ask me to give you something? You want me to give you what I worked for? Work for it like I worked for it. Get it out the mud like I got it out the mud. But when you recognize, through my work ethic, through my network, through my strategizing, through my business savvy, through my intelligence, whatever I used to earn what I've earned was given to me by God. The opportunity was given to me by God. It's very easy for me to pay that forward. Hey, just like people have given to me, hey, I want to give to somebody else. I myself am the recipient of so much undeserved privilege. It honors me to be a source of undeserved privilege for another person. Hey man, I've been helped by teachers, by clients, by friends, by associates. Man, I've been helped more than I can give gratitude for. Let me help somebody else. But when you think, man, I got this by myself, nobody helped me, nobody assisted me, nobody aided me, you will express stinginess to someone who needs your help. One of the things that affliction does, affliction breaks that. See, when you are in a state of difficulty, you know, I can't do this alone. I need help. Things are not under control. Without your aid, I'm doomed. That is a state of worship for a believer. SubhanAllah, I fly all the time. I travel maybe 3-4 times a month, usually on weekends, teaching in communities throughout the country. And it's always interesting to see how people react to turbulence on the plane. Now, those of us who know something about aeronautical engineering, we know the plane is made to sustain turbulence. One engineer told me the wings can actually go up almost 180 degrees, right? And they say no plane has crashed as a result of turbulence. It's not like a plane has been thrown out of the sky. Always some kind of mechanical malfunction when a plane crashes, or visibility, but no plane has, like, the wind crashed the plane. That doesn't happen. Yet, when you feel the turbulence, something about how diminutive you are in the cosmos just occurs to you. And everybody, even agnostic people, they have a moment. You can just see it. We all just have that moment. And I say to myself, what is that? What is that? I think, and this is my theory, you recognize how contingent your existence is in that moment. Nothing about me is essential. This plane could crash and life would go on, just like my existence is completely contingent. Nothing about me is dururi. Nothing is necessary. And you recognize that. You feel like a speck. I've had the realization in those moments, man, I'm 34,000 feet in the sky in a piece of steel. This is crazy. The thing that the believer recognizes is that it's not just, one poet said, human beings only express arrogance on terra firma, when we're on land. In the sea, same thing. If you're on a boat and the boat starts rocking like it's going to capsize, everybody has that moment. La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. Now boats do sink. That's the difference between planes and boats. Boats do capsize and people do drown. But everybody has that moment. You recognize just how small you are. Same thing happens in the sky. Most people only experience that when they're in a state of affliction, when something that is outside of their control has befallen them. If they're diagnosed with an illness, or a loved one dies, or they're awaiting the return of a loved one. Man, my daughter went out 3 hours ago and she hasn't called. Ya Allah, affliction brings you there. What the Prophet ﷺ is teaching us is that we should be able to experience tawakkul, reliance upon God, without affliction. That's the gift of this religion, that without being in a state of affliction, without being diagnosed with a terminal illness, without one of your loved ones not making it in last night, you should already know, Hasbunallah wa ni'mal wakeel, God is enough for us, and He is the one that I give my affair to. He's in control of my life, and I'm content with that. Affliction helps one to realize that. One of the poets said, I will consider every difficulty easy until I obtain my aspirations. Desires are only made subservient to those who patiently preserve, or those who patiently persevere. He's, of course, is talking about nearness to Allah, and he's talking about Jannah, he's talking about paradise. That there's nothing that we're unwilling to expend for what we really want. See, if you really, subhanAllah, some of us, and don't take this the wrong way, I think that some of us might not have a passionate enough engagement with life to understand a passionate engagement with the afterlife. See, if you've never experienced something that you really want, if you've never purchased something that after you bought it, you said, oh my God, what have I done? I can't believe I spent that. I mean, it's just a watch. Oh my God. That's crazy. But you recognize what? You really wanted that. That's why you spent what you spent. You really wanted that dress. You really wanted that bag. You really wanted that trip. Even though you know that the enjoyment of these things is temporal. We'll enjoy them today, we'll forget about them tomorrow. Everything in the dunya is that way. It's a big deal today. Tomorrow you won't even think about it. It'll be in the closet, you won't even look at it. It'll be in the garage, you'll drive it sometime. What do you really want? Imam Ghazali, he said, if you want to think about your relationship to Allah and the next life, remember that everything you seek in this life is only a means to an end. If I ask you about why you want anything, you say, what? Yeah, because I want to enjoy it. Why do you want to enjoy it? Because enjoyment is better than misery. Why is enjoyment better than misery? And so on and so forth. He said, all of your aspiration is really leading you to paradise. That's what you really want. All of your aspiration. You want to, you want success? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says this is fawzun azim. This is the great success. You want gratification. God says their permanent, lasting gratification that does not fade. You want to be in the company of those you love. This is Rafiq al-A'la. This is the highest company of those with whom you want to share company. Everything that you desire, what you actually desire is what paradise and closeness to Allah offers you. Here the poet said, I am willing to patiently persevere until I get what I want. For us as members of the believing community, until we arrive to Allah, until we enter paradise, we are willing to patiently persevere through everything else. And this is what it entails. This is what it requires sometimes. The question is, how much are you willing to sacrifice for what you want? SubhanAllah, one of my, it's not a guilty pleasure, it's just a pleasure. I love watching endurance athletes finish races. Sometimes I go on YouTube and I look at the Olympic marathon from all of the different years, and then I just fast forward to when the winner is finishing. Because there's something I get from seeing the look of vindication on the face of the winner. I've been running for 26.2 miles. I've been training for 4 years for this event, or a year. And now I'm crossing the finish line. How sweet is that? How satisfying is that? In fact, I would even venture to say, if you didn't train and you didn't run 26.2 miles, if a person had cheated and just came out at, the 25-mile marker and just ran, 1.2 miles, I don't think that they could simulate that look of satisfaction. They could, I'm sure, maybe if they're a good actor, I'm sure they could. And he's cheating. It's not genuine, it's not authentic, he's lying. But for a person that really ran the marathon, what does it feel like to cross the finish line? Many people say that our entry into paradise, say inshaAllah, this is the fawzun azim. This is, you've crossed the finish line. And you'll think about all the bumps, all the bruises, all of the blisters, all of the pain, and you won't be able to. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that Allah will bring someone forward that had the hardest life imaginable. Every kind of hardship you can imagine. They will enter paradise and Allah will ask them, did you ever experience any hardship in the life of the dunya, in the life of this realm? And they will respond, not that I recall. Not that I recall. Not that I recall. Because the immensity of the everlasting abode of paradise will be so satisfying that it will effectively remove any recollection of pain or suffering. This is what we are patiently persevering for. He continues, exert your utmost in guarding the obligations God has made incumbent upon you. You know, the Prophet ﷺ, he said, if I tell you to stay away from something, stay away from it. If I tell you to avoid something, avoid it. But if I tell you to do something, if'alu mastata'atum, do as much as you can. This is the mercy of Islam. Do as much as you can. Allahu yuridu bikum al-yusr, wa la yuridu bikum al-usr. God desires ease for you, not difficulty. So do your best in maintaining the obligations that God has ordained for you. Maintain your prayers to the best of your ability. When Ramadan comes, fast to the best of your ability. Right? If you're getting sick, break your fast. MashaAllah. Oh, MashaAllah. Alhamdulillah. I have, MashaAllah. There's one audience member that is pure. For sure. Alhamdulillah. You don't have to take her out. No, bismillah. Wallahi. Might be time to eat. When Ramadan comes, try to maintain your fast. Right? Maintain your fast. You know, when Allah commands of us to give of our wealth, give of your wealth. If you have the health and you have the wealth, intend to make Hajj. These are the obligations. These are the furud ayn, the individual obligations. And try to maintain them. You know, one thing that is always telling, this is like one of those bittersweet lessons. By show of hands, who here has ever had a delinquent debtor? Someone that owed them money that didn't pay on time? Wow, some of you have no broke friends? I put both my hands up. Can I put my feet up too? You know, how does it feel to have a delinquent debtor? Right? When there's someone that owes you, that refuses to pay what they owe, how does that make you feel? You feel what? Taken for granted. You feel undervalued. You feel, you know, it's almost like, it's almost, you know, the thing that, like, in my mind that always plays is when the person was asking me for the money, they were so humble. They were so gentle and mannerable. You know, they used all of these qualifications. You know, if it wouldn't be a difficulty, if it would be something that you could offer, if it wouldn't put you or your family in a position of hardship, could you please loan me $1,000? Just with all of this. And then when they say, I'll pay you back the first of the month, I promise, no excuses, right? Even if my rent doesn't get paid, you'll get paid. So you call them on the 7th of the month. And you say, I just wanted to make sure I didn't miss the Zelle or, you know, the Cash App, or I just wanted to make sure I didn't miss it. Because you said the first of the month, but I haven't seen it. Their attitude has completely changed. Hey man, when I get it, you'll get it. Please, man, why are you bothering me about this, man? And I'm thinking, wow, the change is amazing. Before, you were so humble that it's like your shoulders were touching when you were asking me. And now that I'm, you know, asking you, you're upset, you're ornery and angry. And whenever that happens to me, I think to myself, but how many times have I been delinquent with what I owe to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? So how can I really, there are more significant debts that I don't pay sometime. So when you get it, man, just call me. What else could I, what I'm saying? When you get it, call me. We actually believe that God has rights. Our culture, our contemporary culture, is very comfortable with the notion of human rights. Human rights is one of the most beautiful developments that come out of modernity. The idea that human beings have inherent, inalienable rights that they can never forfeit. That just by virtue of being human, people are worthy of good treatment. Even as prisoners of war, they're worthy of being fed. They're worthy of a certain respect. Muslims should champion human rights always. Allah said, لَقَدْ كَرَمْنَا بَنِي Adam. We have ennobled all of the children of Adam. So for us, yes, human beings have inherent dignity. And I mean inherent dignity. It makes no difference what they believe or disbelieve, what they do or fail to do. Human beings have inherent dignity. I know that a lot of this has changed with the times. The Prophet ﷺ would even say to the Sahaba in warfare, he would say, when you meet your enemy, avoid striking the face, because the face bears the resemblance to our father Adam. He would say, even in conflict, never hit a person in the face. This is why some scholars, they would debate whether boxing and MMA whether it was even halal, because you have to strike people in the face. But then they say it's a sport and people are wearing gloves and everybody loves Khabib, so I guess we gotta let it go, But they would talk about human beings bear an inherent dignity that must at all times be respected. At all, man, any person you meet, man, this is a son or daughter, or maybe they define otherwise, of Adam and Hawa, your father, your mother, your brother in humanity, your sister in humanity. And even if we have significant disagreements, let them know that I see that in you. I see that in you. I recognize that in you. When I'm looking at you, I'm looking at one of the children of Adam. I see that in you. So yes, we believe in that. But we also believe that God has rights. حقوق العباد وحقوق الله. Human beings have inherent rights, but God has an inherent right to be worshiped. And this is something that is difficult for people to understand. A lot of scholars, they talk about it with the name of Allah, Al-Mutakabbir. Mutakabbir is an insult if you use it for a human being. If you say, Huwa mutakabbir, means arrogant, haughty. Like, man, he's mutakabbir, he's arrogant. It's kind of ujb. He's arrogant. But in the case of God, it's fitting. You see, he can be al-mutakabbir fittingly. It's suitable that God is worshipped. We have to understand that for human beings, any arrogance is a blameworthy trait. You have no right to be arrogant about anything. Everything you have is an acquired trait or an acquired skill. You have no right to be arrogant about anything. Everything you have should be a source of praise because it was given to you. Even your good looks given to you, your intelligence given to you, your parents given to you. Everything you have given to you. God is innately God. Do you understand the difference? No one gave God divinity. God is innately. God does not owe anyone anything for his divinity. God is innately divine. And for that reason, God deserves to be worshiped. We take the 5 pillars of Islam. This is just us acquitting ourselves of our responsibility to Allah. This is just what I have to do. Right? This is what I have to do. Because of who God is, this is what I have to do. And it's amazing. Some people, I mean, look at the parallel. Some people fail to recognize, or they don't like the way that sounds. That I have to do something because God is God. I have to do it. But all of them pay taxes. You recognize that you have to do something because the United States is the United States, whether you want to or not. And if you don't, there's consequences. Unless you're Donald Trump. Trump don't pay taxes. Him and his friends don't pay taxes. But for the rest of us, you have this, whether you like it or not. Why? This is a haqq. This is a right that the United States has on me. That I pay taxes. I recognize it as a haqq. It's a right. Whether I like it or not. That's the meaning of the term haqq. In Arabic, haqq, something that you recognize as legitimate even if you don't like it. So for husbands, taking care of your wife and treating her kindly, this is a haqq that she has on you. Whether you want to or not, you have to do that. It's a haqq, it's a right. I have to do that. Or I can choose that I don't want this relationship. But if I choose the relationship, I have to accept the rights of my partner. And the same thing is true on the other side. But that's a right. It's not an elective preference. An elective preference is something I do when I feel like it. A haqq, a right, something that I have to do, even if I don't feel like it. That for me was the biggest difference between how I understood prayer as a Christian and how I understood prayer as a Muslim. As a Christian, I understood prayer as something I did when I felt spiritually inclined to do it. Right? Something I did when I felt grateful. When I felt blessed. When I felt thankful. When I felt devoted. And when I embraced Islam, someone said, it's time to pray. I said, I get around to it, you know what I'm saying? I pray when I pray. No, it's time to pray, right? It's time to pray. The prayers are kutiba alaykum, on wuqut, specified times. The prayers, this is not a prayer that you make when you feel inclined to. That's dua. You can make dua whenever you want. Any time of the month, almost in any place. There's a few places you shouldn't. Almost in any place, in any language you want. It is you addressing God privately in whatever idiom you're comfortable with. But salah, this is a haqq. This is a right. I have to do this. Even if I don't feel like it, I have to do it. If one accepts that, you have entered into Islam, which means submission. I tell people, man, sometimes the most spiritual thing you will ever do in Chicago is making the dawn prayer when underneath the cover is just so toasty and warm. Woo! You're like, man, I don't know what it is, man. It's like right around the time of the dawn prayer, it's just like, it just feels so good under that cover, man. And don't have hardwood floors. as soon as you touch the floor, it's just cold. Oh, oh, oh. Right? That's why you gotta put that throw rug next to the bed. Put those slippers next to the bed. Because, man, look, I remember a new, really enthusiastic, convert to Islam said to me, "That's amazing, man. I mean, Muslims just out of bed, just at, the crack of dawn, just feeling that devotion and feeling that feeling." I looked at him. SubhanAllah. You really are new. Sometimes, man, we ain't feeling nothing. Just what? This is God's right upon me. I gotta do this. I gotta do this, man. I mean, I've seen people praying Fajr looking like they were angry, man. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. And just crawling back in the bed. Now, of course, we want to get to higher levels of devotion where we taste the sweetness of prayer. But if you at least recognize, man, I gotta do this. It ain't, it's just like paying your bills. Look, I gotta do this. It don't always feel, it's not always, I'm not always spiritually floating. I just gotta do it, man. Let's do this. Let's do it. That is submission. That, to me, is the highest level of spirituality. Doing something you don't want to do, but doing it because you believe God commands you to. That's the highest level of spirituality, right? So he says, maintain your obligations with everything you have, right? He continues, and we'll end with this. Be pleased with what God has desired for you. Ibn Mas'ud, radiallahu anhu, who was a companion of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, be pleased with what God has measured out for you, and you will be the wealthiest of people. Avoid what God has forbidden for you, and you will be the most impeccable of people. Perform the obligatory acts God Most High has imposed upon you, and you will be the most devout of people. So as you progress in your Islam, you will encounter stories and teachings and lessons and instruction that tells you about people that prayed all night and fasted every other day, and people who completed the Quran every 2 days, every day. MashaAllah. This is something to aspire to. But if you just do what God commanded you to do, you are the most devout of people. If I just do what God commanded me to do, because God commanded me to do it, you are the most devout of people. That's why, man, my favorite aspect of Ramadan. Now, I want to see everybody become deeply devoted and deeply religious. But one of my favorite things in Ramadan is when you see Muslims who identify as mildly practicing. Like, I'm not, but they're getting up for suhoor. They're fasting the entire day. And even alone at home with, all of the curtains closed, the blinds down, they wouldn't dare take even a sip of water. And I'm just like, this is Ainu taqwa. This is the essence of taqwa. And if you ask them, they'll tell you, I'm not like very religious. And I'm thinking, you're abstaining from food, drink, marital relations for 16 hours with nobody watching except God. And you say, I'm just a little bit religious. I'm like, I'm sure every person of a different faith that you say that to, they're just like, damn, if you're not that religious, what do the religious people in your community do? Walk on coal or something like that, man? It's like, this is an extremely demanding act of devotion. And you have people that say, I'm not that religious, but every year they fast. If you can do that, and you can do what God commanded of you, you will be the most devout of people, right? He says, be pleased with what God has measured out, what God has allotted to you, and you will be the wealthiest of people. Every time we talk about qana'ah, we talk about contentment, I always see, without fail, there's some very ambitious brother or sister that has this look on their face like, I'm trying to get some money. This is not saying that you can't earn money. This is not saying that, you can't aspire to upward mobility. This is saying at each successive point in your journey, be content with where you are in your journey. Even if, you want to become wealthy, you're not wealthy yet. Be content with that. I'm not wealthy yet, and I'm okay not being wealthy yet. Be content with that. Be content striving for what you want, right? Be content. Look, I'm not where I want to be, but I'm okay running the race. That's what I hear there. Not, if you have a little, it's irreligious to want more. No, be content with what you have at every stage of your journey. Right? If you're doing your undergrad, be content doing that. Don't wish that you had already completed your MD. No. I am where I am. If your business is still in the pilot phase, don't wish that it was already a Fortune 500 company. No, I'm content in the pilot phase. This is a part of where I'm going. Be content with that. And then work to get to where you want to be. If you can do that, you're the wealthiest of people. In Arabic, the word, ghina, it only means to be without need. It doesn't mean to have lots of mumtalakat. It doesn't mean to have lots of items. It only means that, there's nothing that I need. And the word miskeen, it means to have maskana. Maskana is a person that doesn't have what they need. I wake up in the morning and I don't have any food. I wake up in the morning, I don't have a place that is secure to call my own. I wake up in the morning, I don't have clothes. Those are the masakin. But if you wake up in the morning and you have what you need, you are the wealthiest of people. Man, it is my contention that most of our connection with money is psychological. I really believe that. I say this all the time, and nobody is convinced of it, but I don't care. Most of our connection with money is psychological. In a given day, I don't care how much money you have in the bank. I don't care what you have in your investment portfolio. In a given day, a human being can only consume so much. You can only drive one car at a time, even if you have 50 cars. You can only eat until you're full, even if you have refrigerators and refrigerators full of food. You can only occupy one room, even if your house is 30,000 square feet. You can only occupy one room. So, experientially, there isn't a lot more than you have that anybody is enjoying. Now, yes, there are qualitative differences between gourmet food and, rice and beans. There's a qualitative difference. But in their ability to satiate the appetite, they're not that different, man. I don't want to be, crude, but, they both come in and go out. Whether the meal costs $2,000 or $2, it goes in one way, it comes out the other way. That's the nature of nature what happens. So on a given day, if you have what you need, you are rich. Nobody has more than you, man. Sometimes I think, this is just in my private conversation with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I was asking God, help me to understand why we see such great wealth disparity in the world. Why one person can have billions and another person not enough food for the day. Like, help me to understand the wisdom of that. This is really challenging me as someone who worships you. Why is that the case? Some people have billions. Some people don't even have food for a day. And then it came to me. Yes, some people do have billions, and some people don't have food for a day. But wealth disparity is not the same thing as rizq, provision disparity. We actually are much closer in our provision than we are in our wealth. See, wealth is what's in the bank. What Jeff Bezos has in the bank, that's his wealth. Right? What he has in his investment portfolio, that's his wealth. What he ate today, what he wore today, what he did today, that's his rizq. That's his provision. It's probably not that much different than yours. I'm telling you, it's probably not that much different than yours. Had breakfast, had lunch, had clothes on, was in relationships with people, had a means of conveyance to get where he needed to go, had a place over his head, and is probably going to sleep tonight on a bed, just like you. Just like you. Now, as he was doing it, he was worth billions. And as you were doing it, your account was in the negative. But what was the difference in what you were doing? Do you understand what I'm saying? What was the difference in what you were doing? Wasn't that different what we were doing, right? That's what I mean. Most of our connection to wealth is psychological, right? There's a contentment. And here's the thing about the psychological connection. The way that you think about someone else that has more than you, there's someone that thinks about you like that. This is what travel will offer you. You know, I love to take long drives. I love just driving my car aimlessly. And one of my favorite areas to drive, astaghfirullah, is the North Shore of Chicago. I just love driving just up Sheridan Road. You just look and say, wow, look at these palatial homes. And then I think to myself, there are people in other places that would drive down my street and look at my house with the same awe, with the same wonder that I look at those homes. SubhanAllah. They would look at your apartment and say, wow, running water, central air conditioning, refrigerated food. I mean, how does it feel to walk into something like this every day? And you would say, what, this? Ah, man, it's just my house. And that's exactly how a lot of those people feel. This, it's just my house. It's just where I live. The best thing you could have is just gratitude, man. If you have gratitude for what you have, you're wealthy. You have it all. If you don't,